Welcome to the Marketing Lab, your go-to podcast for all marketing information. I'm your host, Tyler, and we'll cover different tips, tricks, and strategies to help level your marketing up, examine real-world case studies, and dissect all the marketing implications and how you can best use this information, and lastly, bring in industry professionals to share their knowledge along with entrepreneurs and discuss their marketing journeys in business. Now let's grab get our lab coats on, and jump right in. All right. So this is a rather big topic. I got a lot of notes on it. I got a lot to say. So I don't want to say it's going to be a long time, but I will try and provide as much value as I can in as short as a period of time as possible. And hopefully we can dissect this a little bit, but this is Twitter rebranding to X. I know this is a big topic right now. A lot of people are talking about it, and it's a rather big, especially with Threads just coming out recently. And I think Threads was huge at the start because you're integrated with Instagram and everyone wants to claim their username, make sure they get their handle so everyone's joining. And from what I heard is massive spikes off the start because you obviously got the massive Instagram and Facebook audience already. And then after that, everyone kind of stopped going on Threads. I feel like some people still use it. Some people don't, but I think there was just a massive spike and now it's just kind of dwindling off. But let's get into this. Twitter rebranding to X. Let's get into a little bit of a backstory. Twitter was a declining social platform. There was a lot of issues with it. People were saying, this is how you're going to make money. It was I don't think it was a very profitable business for a social platform, especially comparing it to Meta, TikTok, maybe, I don't know. Just comparing it to the other social platforms. It wasn't that profitable compared to the other ones, and they didn't have any good cash flow sources, I guess you could say. And I'm not sure if Elon was joking at the time when he said this, but he basically said he would buy Twitter for $44 billion. Not sure if he was joking or not. At this point, it doesn't matter if he was joking or not because he has gone through with it. And I think when he said it, he had to put an offer in or something like that. And in doing so, they had to give up information. It was like a discovery phase or whatever, something of the processes that go into when you are buying or acquiring a company. They have to be able to give you all the information that the business has. So I don't know if it was a play for him to try and get them to release information or him actually wanting to buy the business. And it is seeming like he does actually want to buy Twitter, but for other reasons than buying Twitter for buying Twitter, as we'll get into later, and a reason for the rebrand. So he ended up buying it. Not sure if he was joking or not. There was a big censorship issue, and that's why he did put in his offer of $44 billion to get all that information out there. And he did end up going through a lot of the Twitter files. Was really popular back in, I don't even know how many months ago that was, but it was really popular at the time, and it was just showing how much censorship there actually was. And basically what he said he was going to do is unlock the company's potential and advance in free speech and defeating spam bots. And he's been doing a pretty good job at this. And I know there's so many people out there that hate Elon for whatever reason. Maybe it's just because he's extremely rich. He's great in a capitalist market. I don't know what it is, but it just seems like he has a lot of haters. But if you have haters, that means you're doing something right. So he said he had this idea for a business or app way back when he was working on PayPal. And when he was building PayPal, I think he tried to rebrand PayPal or start the company originally as X.com. He's had this obsession with the letter X. When you look at his Tesla Model X, when you look at SpaceX, a lot of this stuff revolves around X, and I think he calls his son X as well. It has a bunch of random letters and Roman numerals. I don't know what's in his name, but he calls his son X apparently too. So he has this obsession with X. And when he was making PayPal and when he was putting this offer in for Twitter, he said he had this idea way back when he was building PayPal, and he said he was surprised that no one has actually done this idea, and he was surprised that no one has actually pursued it. So he wanted to take Twitter. It already has that brand value. It already has that name. It already has the platform, and then turn it into his idea of this social or whatever it is that we'll get into a little bit later, but turn it into this idea that he had way back when. So that's a little backstory of him acquiring Twitter, and now we'll go a little bit of the present day. And basically, he's doing his best to deliver on his promises. He put out a poll on Twitter that, hey, should I step down as Twitter CEO? And everyone, he's just got so many haters for whatever reason. I don't know why. Fucking love the guy. And this guy's like a genius. He's the smartest. It makes me think that if it was back in the old days and there was like social media around, people would probably hate Albert Einstein. Why? Because he's really smart. I don't know why. Because when you look at Elon Musk, he's extremely smart. He's revolutionizing human nature or humankind, whatever you want to call it, with space travel and reducing the amount of materials they use because it's a lot of reusable parts with the rockets. So I don't know. It just seems people get mad at, and I don't even think he has a lot of money to his name. It's just his assets and the amount of money, shares that he has in his company, say like Tesla, Neuralink, SpaceX, now Twitter. He just has a lot of assets, but I don't even know if he has a lot of money to his name, but not really my discussion and not really on topic here. So he's been doing his best to deliver on his promises, which is eliminate censorship and remove bots. And basically what he's been doing with the censorship, a lot of people are just going to scrutinize him no matter what, if there's any little detail. And I think a lot of people on Twitter, if you do think about it, their political views are on the other side than Elon. So maybe that's why a lot of people don't like Elon. And it's funny because everyone's like, oh, I'm going to delete Twitter as they tweet this tweet out, and I'm going to delete Twitter, and then they end up staying, or they just bash Twitter all the time and they don't end up actually leaving or doing anything that they say they do. So he released all the information regarding all the censorship with Twitter, and it definitely did not get as much media attention as it probably should have, but he released all the information and censorship that Twitter ended up going through. And like I was saying, it tends to lean to one side on the censorship scale. So he's done a pretty good job so far, eliminating the censorship, trying to eliminate the bots. And like I said, a lot of people are going to scrutinize him whenever one issue comes up where he censors a topic or a certain thing. And I've seen it quite a few times, and people will be like, oh, why does this person get censored? And then he actually replies back to him and says that shouldn't have been censored, we'll send it to our team, and then they end up uncensoring it. So he's actually done a really good job, even though there's so many people out there that say he's done a shit job. It's just a bunch of haters saying that he's doing a shit job. So, and it seems like he's been doing a lot of testing with everything. I saw one where he ended up going, I think he ended up going live, and it was in like 360p, and it was just a bunch of pixels. So it's a lot of failures along the way, and he's just trying to learn, figure out different things with the platform. And I think that's a huge thing that Elon Musk does. And this is something to consider when we get into this a little bit later, but a lot of failures take place with Elon. So with his rocket, the first one that he just launched, I think a couple months ago, it went farther than they expected, and it ended up blowing up somewhere around the Earth's atmosphere or whatever it was. I'm not very scientific. My knowledge isn't really there. So it ended up blowing there, and then something that he tweeted is, it was a great success. We learned a lot of things, and especially with his Cybertruck, when he threw a ball or whatever it was at the window, it ended up breaking. When he first launched his rockets way back in the day, and it just blew up right away. And I think the first 3 launches, they were failures. And this is just something that Elon Musk does, is with every failure, you learn a lot out of it. And that's maybe something what he's doing with X and rebranding with the current logo and all it is. actually, I don't know if it was this morning or when it was, but it was actually really recent for me. I just noticed it this morning. But the app is actually now called X. The logo is X, and I didn't really look past that, but it's already taken a lot of effect. So now Elon is rebranding Twitter and changing the name to X, and it's now called X. So getting into the rebranding side of this, and there's a lot that can go into rebranding, and especially with the amount of years that Twitter has already built up. Twitter has that brand name, that brand value, and that takes years to build up. When I say Twitter, someone knows that. It's basically become a verb where I'm going to go tweet that. Everyone wants to become a verb. So go Google it, go take an Uber. Everyone's trying to become a verb. And Twitter spent 17 years in business building that brand name, that brand value. And all of a sudden, Elon's just kind of wiping it away. And now they're losing all that brand value because now it's not called Twitter, it's called X. And what are you going to do with everything else? Is a tweet going to still be called a tweet? Is it, I saw something funny. It's like, is it now going to be called a thread or something like that, where it's copying that? And then it was saying something like Mark's going to copy Twitter and steal that name and start calling threads Twitter or threads tweets or whatever it is. So I thought that was kind of funny, but it's like, what are you going to start calling everything? Is it just going to be a post? Is it just going to be something like that? Is it going to be an X? You don't really know. So it's taken away a lot of that brand value and that brand name that everyone's grown to know. And I don't know if they love it, but they've grown to know it. And that's something that takes years to be able to build up. So it's just interesting that it's just like an X, and X isn't really, it's just a letter. So it's really tough to have that brand name. I don't know, maybe it will be something that everyone says. It's like, have you heard of X? Are you on X? And it just seems like an interesting choice for just like a letter. So like I said, Twitter's been there for 17 years building up that brand value. And you just don't build that brand value and that brand name overnight. It takes years. Facebook, Google, Amazon, these all took years to be able to build up that name, build up that brand value. Uber, like, they just didn't happen overnight. It takes time and takes effort. And that's one thing that they're kind of throwing away when they're rebranding here to X. So they're just kind of getting rid of everything. So now they basically have to restart with X. And his goal with this is to become an everything app where you can do everything in it, like financial services. You can, I don't really know everything. Let me see if I have everything in here where, I don't know if I have what his ultimate goal with everything, but basically he wants a one-stop shop app for X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, whatever you know best. And one thing that he has praised in the past is, I believe it's called WeChat, and it's a Chinese company that basically is what Elon's trying to get to, where it's an everything app and everything's in there. And I believe I saw that 1 billion people go on it monthly in China, which is quite a bit of people. So it's at the same time, do people want an app that has everything in it? And I don't know, it's only going to tell with time, but it's tough to really put your foot on it and be able to judge what exactly is going to come from this at this current point. It's just the rebranding aspect of it into X is what's the deal there? What's going to be the effects there? But Twitter was this platform for tweeting, and Elon's vision wasn't to just have a social platform to tweet. Elon's vision was to have a platform that you can do everything on, and Twitter was a jump start for that. Instead of starting from zero, he instead started with Twitter, so he's way up here, and he's way ahead than where if he was just starting from zero. So that's a big reason why he did decide to acquire Twitter as opposed to actually just starting it from zero. It just helps it out a little bit. You already have the audience there. You already have some money there. You already have people. So it's just a lot easier I guess it would be just a lot easier to put 44 billion behind it. And now you actually have this platform. And a little bit of it is whatever Elon likes or wants, that's the direction that you tend to have to go. So this is just something that it seems like Elon's wanted, and Elon's getting what he wants. But when you look at it and look at all of Elon's businesses, basically everything that he touches turns to gold just because of how smart he is and everything that he's done. He's just so well versed, and his depth of knowledge is so it's unbelievable how great it is. So when you look at Elon himself, he's a brand in himself, and that's why I think Tesla, Neuralink, SpaceX, and all these platforms are not really platforms, but businesses turn out to be so well because it has Elon's brand name on it. Everyone flocks behind Elon because he's so smart. He knows what he's doing, I guess you could say. And that's why everything succeeds so well. Whereas if Elon wasn't the CEO or owned Tesla or SpaceX, Neuralink, whatever it is, any of those platforms or businesses, I don't know why I keep saying platforms because of Twitter or X, but if he wasn't there, imagine what the value of those companies would be. They probably would, Tesla probably would have failed years ago because of the amount of times that Tesla was running out of money. They didn't have any money, but it was Tesla, or it was Elon Musk, and everyone wants to get behind Elon because he's so smart. He's a genius. He knows what he's doing, and he has so much experience. So that's how he's able to raise all this capital and be able to keep all these businesses going. He's just one of the greatest minds in our day and age. So a lot of people just flock behind him because of who he is. So it's like, if he were to get struck by a bus, obviously X is not going to be able to survive because this is basically Elon's baby and Elon's vision, and everyone is following Elon. Everyone's listening to Elon. So that's pretty much what X is going to be, is Elon's little baby, Elon's little vision. I don't know if maybe he's going to end up combining all of his companies into X, and then it's just going to be one massive thing. But I don't know. I feel like that's all really widespread and wouldn't really fall under the same thing. I think they all have to have their brand name and brand value. And because if you look at Tesla's been building their brand name and brand value up over years, and now everyone associates that T with Tesla, and it's somewhat separated itself from Elon, but everyone knows that Tesla is Elon's car company. So it's tough to tell because everything that Elon touches turns to gold. So when Elon rebrands this to X, I think he has over 100 million followers, or I don't know what they're called on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. He has that social following where he can tell people, this is what I'm going to do, this is what, and then to go here and to follow him and buy his shit. And because of that, people are still going to go there. And that helps him and the business be able to start and get off the ground and keep that momentum for a long or a sustained amount of time, because he has that following. He has people that are going to flock towards whatever he does because they believe in what he does. And he just has such a great name, or great vision of where he wants to go. So I touched on that a little bit, where Twitter's name worked for the typical 140 characters that you can tweet, but that's not the direction that Elon wanted to take it. Brand name is everything. Whenever you look on Google and you Google something, there's a lot of those brand names that are the top searches. So whenever you like Wikipedia, that's one of the top searches because it has that brand name. And not just that, there's a lot of other factors that get played into it, but it's built up that brand name, that brand value. I think that's been around for over 20 years. When you look up other stuff, say like movies, IMDb is one of the top ones that come up as well when you look up movies, because they have that brand name, that brand value. Same thing with books. There's Goodreads. Goodreads is a really big brand name. And Yelp, whenever you're looking up restaurants, those are always the top searches because that has that brand value. So let's say you search social media platforms on Google, and then you're going to have the top brand name values that come up. I can do this live and see exactly what comes up. Platforms. Let's see, social media. Let's just try social media. Wikipedia. There you go. So, that's interesting. So no social media platforms actually came up. There's some images that are coming up like Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, but no actual social media platforms, which is kind of interesting. Maybe they only get brought up when you search the actual brand name. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I thought I guess I was wrong. I thought you would be able to search Google social media and then it would be able to bring those platforms up, just because say you search restaurants, Yelp's probably going to be one of the first one that comes up because that has that brand name, that brand value. People know and trust it. And that's the same thing with Twitter. And that's the same thing with a lot of other businesses too, where whenever you see, say, Golden Arches, you know exactly what business that is. That's McDonald's. And you know exactly what you're going to be getting when you go to McDonald's. If you go to McDonald's and get a fry, you know exactly what that fry is going to be like. You know exactly what it's going to taste like because you've been there so many times. And that's the same thing with Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. You know exactly what you're getting when you go there. And every time, say, Facebook goes to update their platform, everyone's pissed because now it's all changed. Now they got to learn new shit. And it only takes about a day or two for everyone to calm down, and they're used to it already. So there is going to be a little bit of a learning phase, obviously, with Twitter going to X, where it's going to be different on people, and it seems like it might just be a phase into it. And like I was saying earlier, that there's a lot of failures that Elon Musk goes through, and this logo that he put up, or this X, is really simple and just basic. So it could just be a learning and testing phase to test the water, test the market, see what everyone thinks of the logo, fail a little bit, and learn from that. And then just take all the opinions with a grain of salt. Do they just not like me? Do they just not like Twitter? Do they just not like rebranding? Or are they actually giving constructive feedback and constructive criticism? Because I'm seeing a lot of logos where they're taking the bird concept of Twitter and making it into an X, which looks really cool. But at the same time, with Elon's vision going to everything in the X, Twitter and tweets is kind of something in the past that he wants to get away from. So that could be a reason why he's not really going with the bird, because he's trying to branch away from that, where Twitter is formerly known as something that you would just go to post 140 characters. And now we're trying to get to somewhere where we have an everything app, where we can do everything on this single app. And going back into, I know I'm going all over the place, but this is just something that to touch on about brand value, where more people search for Nike than they do running shoes. And that just goes to show the power of brand value. People know the brand name of Nike. They want that brand name. They want that brand value, where X now, it's not much right now. Whereas Twitter, people knew what Twitter was. If I say, hey, do you want to invest in Twitter or do you want to invest in X? And people are like, what's X? Whereas with Twitter, people actually know what Twitter is. They might be like, it's not the best platform and it might not be the best investment, but they at least know the brand name and brand value. Whereas with X right now, you could probably go on the street and there's probably a lot of people that aren't going to know what X is or even understand it, because it's just a letter at the same time. Whereas if you go up to people on the street, more people are going to know exactly what Twitter is. So it's going to take time for it to happen. People are going to start talking about it. And I think that could be another example of failures, where people are bashing Elon Musk right now, bashing Twitter, bashing X, and saying this is the dumbest move ever. But if you think about it, he's getting a lot of free PR, a lot of free marketing. Everyone's talking about it. They're like, look at this shitty logo that he just took as, I don't know the exact font, but he just took this font and he put X in there, and that's all he did with the logo. He didn't do anything crazy or anything fancy with it. So it could be, in a sense, some marketing PR stunt where he's just putting it out as basic as possible, testing the waters and seeing what everyone else is taking from it, and then just learning from that. So that's just one thing about brand name, brand value. And I've had clients in the past change their name, change their URL for their website. And I know Twitter, I believe he bought x.com. So if you go to x.com, it's going to redirect you to Twitter. I don't know if it's going to go the other way, where once they get farther down the line, that Twitter is going to actually end up redirecting to x.com. So that'll be an interesting play as well. But I've had clients that have done this and it ends up hurting their website. Even if you do all the redirects to your new website, you're going to lose a lot of that authority and that brand value that you've already built up over time, because everyone would be searching for you. Say your name was Design Remodelers, and then all of a sudden you change your name to Remote Remodelers. People are still going to be searching Design Remodelers and you're not going to be showing up there anymore. So it's going to be an interesting play where people might search. It's still going to be the same for them, but you're going to lose a lot of that authority on Google and search engines and people trying to find you. So there's a little bit of that issue there. I think it's a little bit different with them because it's a multi-billion-dollar company. They have probably I wouldn't say, maybe not billion views or visits, whatever you want to call it, sessions on their app every month, but maybe a billion monthly active users. So they do already have a lot of traffic, and I think Google and all the search engines are going to be able to adopt to that and be able to understand that a little bit more. And over time, I think it's going to help with them just because they already have that platform and everything. But if you look at other platforms that have actually rebranded as well, their names never really ended up changing. So like when you look at Facebook, they ended up rebranding to Meta because Mark's big vision was he wants to go into VR and go into this whole new universe. And that didn't end up going well because he's got a lot of shareholders that he has to appease to. And I think I heard the number was around $4 billion that he ended up losing trying to go this route. And even though he rebranded to Meta, I wouldn't say no one, but rarely anyone calls it Meta now. Everyone still calls it Facebook because that's what they know, that's what they love, that's what they're used to. And that might be the same thing with Twitter. Not a lot of people are going to start calling it X. So we'll see how that goes. And it's the same thing with Google where they rebranded to Alphabet. Not a lot of people even have heard of Alphabet, but if you go to look up their stock, that's their parent company is Alphabet. So same thing with Facebook, parent company is Meta. So it's just interesting that all these other big businesses have gone through rebrands and no one actually uses that name because they've built up that brand name, that brand value. Everyone calls them that. So it's just an interesting play with Twitter and X. And if people are actually going to be switching over, are they going to still be calling it Twitter? Are they still going to be calling it X? Because I know right now I'm still calling it Twitter. It's probably going to take me a little while to actually start calling it X. And I think I never really used Twitter in the first place. I might go on every now and then just to see Elon because he posts a lot of funny stuff. But maybe once he gets to a certain point where it is that everything app, maybe I will start calling it X because he's branched away from Twitter and what it once used to be where it was just 140 characters, go out, send a tweet. Now it's everything. So it's got like that whole X meaning behind it. So it's only a matter of time before we see if this does pay off or not. And I think if it was anyone other than Elon, this probably wouldn't succeed very well. Rebrands are extremely tough. If you even look at Facebook, Google, like I was saying, it's extremely tough for them to rebrand. So if you are going to rebrand, you want to do it as early and soon as possible, just because when you build up that brand name, that brand value, it's going to be really tough to end up pivoting to something else because people have already known and called you this. They trust you. They understand your business. So it's going to be really tough for them to transition away from Twitter to X. So we'll see how that goes. From Elon's eyes, let me just see here. Twitter wasn't the name. That was going to be his vision for the everything app. Like I was saying earlier, Twitter was for tweeting and not for everything. So that's basically one of the main reasons why he did want to change it. And Twitter wants to rebrand because X to get into everything. He's private. Yeah, that's another thing that I forgot to talk about with, I don't know if I did or not. Maybe I did. But Mark, yeah, I did. Has a lot of shareholders that he has to appease to. Whereas with Twitter and X, Elon Musk, Elon doesn't really have a lot of those shareholders that he has to appease to because he did take them private. And that's probably a big reason why he did end up taking Twitter private in the first place, is so he could do all of his big vision. So he's probably had this planned out for years where he wants to take it private so he doesn't have all these shareholders. He doesn't have to release all the financial information to all the public. And so it gives him the opportunity to be able to build his everything app. So we'll see. It's only a matter of time to see if it is going to be a huge success. I know Elon's thinking long term, and if Elon's able to stay there and doesn't get hit by a bus, I think it probably will end up being a success just because it's Elon Musk, and pretty much everything he touched turns to gold. He's a marketing genius. He's a genius in every sense. I don't really know, but brand name and brand value takes years to build up. So if you're switching the name, it'll never be, it'll never build any value if you keep switching the name. So I think you really got to think about it. And if you are going to do it, you got to think a lot about into it, because like you got to change your URL. You got to, all these people that might talk about you, it's better to do it as soon as possible than later. Like say Nike, it's way too late for them to rebrand. And I think maybe only if something bad goes bad or something bad happens, where like publicity wise, maybe something goes terribly wrong. I don't really know. But just rebranding is extremely tough. It takes years to build out that brand name and brand value. And that's something that Twitter ended up doing over 17 years. It's somewhat of a household name now. And now Elon has to go through this whole new process with X, but it's been his vision for, I think, over 20 years to have this platform, to have this business. So he's fulfilling his dream, I guess you could say, with that. And I think his other dream is SpaceX and going to space and intergalactical travel. So I don't know. I wouldn't bet against Elon just because of everything that he's done and everything that he can do. But I think that's everything that I have today. Rebranding is tough. And we'll see exactly where this goes for X and Twitter. But thanks for tuning in thanks for tuning in to the Marketing Lab. If you got some value out of this episode, share it with your team, colleagues, friends, or anyone you think this will benefit. You can leave a review and let us know how we did. We'll take any feedback so we can create the #1 marketing podcast out there and deliver the most value to you. If you would like to apply to be on our show and share your expertise, head on over to newframedigital.com/the-marketing-lab. And at the bottom of the page, you'll find a form to fill out. Remember, every entrepreneur needs a lab, and this is yours. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.